You know, it all starts the same way. You have a vision or an idea of where your life should be, but the environment in which you grow up in doesn't provide you with the necessary tools to help you attain that vision. And so, after careful reflection, you tell yourself, let's pack up everything and go try our luck somewhere else. This is the story of every African who decides to leave their home country in search for a better future in Europe or anywhere else. Our guest today is Desmond Beddy, who is a Ghanaian community consultant and social entrepreneur based in Hamburg, Germany, and also a self-published author of the book The History of Ghanians in Germany. We talk about how Ghanaians gain access to Germany and the various options available to them. We also talk about the social construct and how that impacts the life of Ghanaians when they come into Germany. So the role of the church, how do you balance your traditional values with the modern day value of the Western society? What are some of the common best practices when it comes to integrating a society? And how do you make a successful life once you're here as an expert? I hope you guys find this exchange useful. Don't forget to hit the follow button or the subscribe button depending on what app you're listening to us, and feel free to send us your feedback with what you thought about the exchange and how we can do better. Without any further ado, let's jump right in. Welcome to Fireside, a subset of the Side Note podcast. Here, we get to sit down with African experts to discuss their various projects. You get unfettered access to their lives, achievements, challenges, and untold stories. A front row seat to incredible journeys, only on Side Note with D-Terence. All right, welcome to the show, Desmond. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. Today we'll be talking about your new book, The History of Ghanaians in Germany, a book which I would say for the audience, everyone should think about getting a copy because it gives you a very deep dive into the Ghanaian community in Germany. But before we get into that, could we just get a little story about yourself, your origins, and a brief history of your time in Germany?
I'm a Ghanaian. I came to Germany in 1993. My background is IT. Okay. I first did what we call informative Kaufman, and then later on I did what we call systems engineer, Microsoft Certified System Engineer. Okay. A publisher, I'm an author, but currently I work as a community consultant.
Nice. I talked about IT, so was that something like you always wanted to do, like education-wise, like more into things, or was it just something you found easy?
I'll be honest with you. I went into IT when I came here. I noticed that I'm one guy who wasn't that very fluent with the German language. So I thought, wow, IT is solving problems. So if I can solve problems without having to be and speak perfectly, then I'll opt for IT. So that is the main reason why I opted for IT.
Nice.
I'll solve problems, and that is it. And occasionally I'll communicate with the people briefly. Okay. But along the line, I got into social work, and for some years, a couple of years now, I've been working as a community consultant.
And does that come in now with the top of it, which is where we're currently having this exchange?
Exactly.
Okay. The book, I have read it. Like I said, it's very insightful. It gives you a lot of history about Ghanaians in Germany, but also it touches on a couple of Ghanaians who are doing great things in Germany. So what was the main reason behind writing the book first?
Yes, as I said, I've been working as a community consultant for some time. It means through my work, I get to know what is happening in our community. So I have to solve problems. I have to advise. I have to advise people what to do, where they ought to be at a given time. So along the line, I found out that we had so many challenges. So I thought it wise that why not we document all these things? So it means in the course of it, I got to know that if we want to do better, we first have to capture our past and present and then make projections into the future. That means the generation after us should be able to know where we're doing well and where we weren't doing well, and particularly what the deficits have been, so that they will be in a better position to do well than us.
Okay. And I'm safe to say that was very well conveyed. I think in the very first chapter, you touched on the historical path of Ghanaians and how they all came about here. And one of the things that stood out to me was you talked about the fact that Germany holds the biggest number of Ghanaian population. Hamburg holds the biggest Ghanaian populations in Germany. And then you highlighted that the fact, since Germany gives one of the best infrastructures in Europe, and I think the question you rightly posed in the book is, how are we taking advantage of that? Based on that, so what would you say with the current challenges that you've elaborated in the book that Ghanaians go through? Do you think that we as Africans or Ghanaians acknowledge those infrastructural advantages that are in Germany? And how do you think we're using them? Or is there room to improve on how we acknowledge those?
Of course, there is room to improve. But what I've come to realize is that despite we live in an advantaged system, we first have to put our structures in place. That is, it means when people are here, we need to establish institutions that will explain to our people what are the advantages? How do one go about it? So I think those are some of the things missing in our institutions. That means we need to orientation points, welcome center, where when people come instantly, we show them the way, we guide them. These are going to be sort of shortcuts for them. So this is one of the areas I think as a community, we need to do much more. We don't have to wait till the people come. They don't know what to do. By the time they realize there could be a way, most often it's too late.
Okay.
So we first and foremost have to set up more institutions where people can go for counseling. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people who finish university back home. They had professions, but they still aren't aware that when you come, maybe your certificates could be translated, your transcripts could be looked at. So most often by the time they realize these things exist, it's almost too late. So we have to do more so it makes life a bit easier for them.
So focus on that orientation phase.
Exactly.
To provide. Exactly. And looking back, we have, I think, chapter 2, we talk about the first and second generation Ghanaians.
Yes.
And surprisingly to me, the first generation came here mainly for education.
Yes, that is when we want to, you see, what I did is, at a point in time, I redefined the first generation.
Okay.
Because like I said, the people like Dr. Amun, during the World War, people were coming. Yeah, we have Mr. Tano, who is almost 90 years back. They came even before the 50s. So I redefined the first generation as those who came, let's say, the late 50s or beginning from the 60s.
Okay.
And these people came mostly as students. Then the president of Ghana, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, had this vision. He was trying to transform the country quicker, but he noticed that without the people with the know-how, without people who have the administrative know-how, no matter what you bring, you need the skills to be able. So he managed to push most of these people outside to go and learn and then come back to help build the country. So yes, when we take it from this level, the first generation were people who came here and supposed to learn.
Okay.
Go back. Yes.
The interesting part is that these first generation Ghanaians came here for studies, went back home, and
supposed to go back.
Supposedly, ironically enough, the second generation leaves Ghana due to economic hardships.
Yes.
Which, like I said, plays irony into the situation as well. Now, of these second generation of Ghanaians who came due to second challenges, would you say these are the guys who then led to the huge Ghanaian?
Yeah, I think actually I tried to define them as the second batch of the first generation.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they're drawing the line as to where the first generation, second generation was a bit challenging. So I said this is the group that came immediately after the first group. Okay. Because when we want to look at generational, we can also look at based on parental. So these are people who gave birth to people who have already given birth to other people. So when you want to look at it that way, it's a bit challenging. So yes, that group is the group I define as the second batch of the first generation.
Okay.
Yes, these are the people most went to Nigeria to work there. And then when they, at the point in time, they had to go back, some had to go back some were in Ivory Coast and things like that. So this generation, mostly they came in their numbers.
Okay.
And that is actually the more basis of the Ghanaian community we have here today.
Okay.
Yeah, they came huge in their numbers. The 80s.
Okay.
They came, a lot of them came.
And a lot of the Ghanaians today are descendants of these folks.
This particular one.
Okay.
Yeah. But of course, those who came to study to have.
Decades, yeah.
But and then the seamen, those who were the sheep, they used the sheep, they also came. They came actually close with the students.
Which is what brings my question. Why Hamburg, though, specifically?
Yeah, you see, Hamburg, let's look at it comparatively. Yeah? Hamburg is a port city.
Yeah.
And then those seamen were coming with the sea, and Hamburg is their first destination as seamen, okay? Because they were already established to some extent. And it is much easier for the others to join. Of course, when you go somewhere, you look for where your people are. Yeah. So they come here. So most of the people who are even elsewhere, a lot of them first landed in Hamburg before they moved. And some too, after some time, rather prefer to move to Hamburg because it's much easier for them to mingle with their own people. So yes, Hamburg has some, and Hamburg, we shouldn't forget, has this trade relationship with the African continent long ago. Yeah? The Hamburg is where all these ships were going to the continent with their sort of their alcohol and whatever it is, their gunpowders and whatever. So Hamburg has a big history on the continent.
Yeah, so that's something.
So it's easier for people. They had already the relationship with us. So and then around Bremen too, these missionaries, a lot of also took place around the Bremen enclave. They were also very active in the missionary work back on the continent. So this northern part is close to Africa, so they already had this relationship. So it was much easier for them also to a bit adapt to us.
To that, yeah. That's something I found quite interesting with the book, like understanding this root cause by Hamburg. And so this brings us to my next question. So we've talked about first generation, second generation, and another thing you touched on, which I thought was quite interesting, was gaining access to Ghana, to Germany. So what would you say is the main source of entry for today's Ghanaians?
Today's Ghanaians, that is quite interesting. We still come in our numbers. The party will not change. No matter the borders, the securities are tight, still we have
we'll find a way.
And that's interesting. Yeah. But for some years now, I've been advocating that we have a lot of people who have finished universities back home. Yeah. Unemployed, no work. And then the opportunities are here plenty. So my advocacy is, hey, look, they should find a way, and even there is a legal way of coming, that they can, even whilst there are those who, especially in the IT areas, those who are particularly good in the engineering, can apply for maybe master programs and then come. So this is the area I've been trying to but unfortunately, when you alone, only a few people are seeing that particular trend. It's much so. I hope most of us, and sometimes I also feel I should have a sort of agency back home to work on that thing. And even I tell people, it's even a sort of income generating source, because if you have such an institution back home and you run it well, charge the students a little bit, you can guide them to come and study here.
Yeah, because so the IT department or the IT sector, the industry, it's really growing. The way technology is evolving, we will need more and more people who understand systems and softwares. And so engineering, IT software engineering is something that I would say anyone who is wise can get in today, because in the next 10 to 5 years, it will be saturated because everyone will want to get into that.
Yeah, but honestly speaking, even during our days, we were thinking it will be saturated. Yeah. But till now, it's still not. So I still believe that it's still the future. So a lot of people to still try and take advantage of it.
All right, so this is for guys who are back home, who are...
Exactly. And then those here too, you see, there is one thing we're missing, and that is we've structured our education back home.
Okay.
We are centered on white-collar jobs. That is, everybody should be a scholar, everybody should be an academia. And then you'll be surprised that in Germany, if you learn a trade, if you're a carpenter, a mason,
You can make a decent living.
You make a lot of money. And then the most interesting aspect of it is that, unlike you, when you close for the day, you've closed, these are people who still can work for people and make some extra. So we've been trying to advise people to go into it, but most often you notice that our kids, the moment they are not able to climb higher on the academic level, they stop there. Instead of trying to rather learn a trade, a vocational and technical trade, they end up there. And I feel it's unfortunate. So we as community leaders have to come out with more strategies as to how to propagate, how to inform our people, how to inform parents to take advantage of it. So I think all of us who are functioning as community leaders are not doing well.
My father did vocational training, so more of a technical person. So he studied or at least learned like auto mechanic. So that was his bread and butter. And he always said, you can never run out of money or food if you learn a trade. Right now, he's an auto engineer, retired, but he started off just as a simple mechanic. And so when we're growing up, in as much as he sent us to school, he always told us, like, all of us learned how to fix cars. Because it's like, if you know how to fix a car, you could fix someone else's car and give you some money if you're in a bad spot. So I do see the value, especially in Europe, where vocational training and things like carpentry is really pushed forward. Even a freezer, a hairdresser, you need to get a certificate to own a shop. So I could see, you're right, this is something that we are missing out, and hopefully we can fill that gap at some point.
And these are things one person cannot do alone. Because most often when parents come to me and I have to advise them, you look through their certificate, you look through, and then maybe they are done with the 10th class, and maybe the teachers are not recommending that they continue with the abitur. And then the parents are like, hey, so most of these kids themselves too are not that aware. And the parents too are saying, if you don't study, then you've not done well. So instead of even motivating the child, they feel like, oh, my child has not done well. And most often, instead of encouraging these kids to go further, then they sort of rather discourage the child. Actually, that is the stage where the child needs
motivation.
And then luckily for us in Germany, even if it's academia, you want your child, they build the academic system in a way that at any point in time, you can even go and do an Ausbildung, then that makes you get your O-level. You can even then do another Ausbildung.
Always the way,
So the chances are there. So that is also an area that we have to create more awareness. We have to create more awareness. And unfortunately, creating awareness is much expensive. It's very expensive, time-consuming, but nevertheless, we should do more so that we will have more better.
I think that has to do with the social construct, which we will touch on later. One of the things I also noticed, which was eye-opening for me, was regarding people who come over and overstay their visa and then end up being undocumented.
Yes.
So you write about how they can move from that to documented. So there are two things you touched on. The first one was asylum seekers.
Yes.
And I didn't know that when you're an asylum seeker, you're not supposed to work. Could you elaborate on that?
Along the line, laws keep changing. So I can't tell, but I think if my memory is right, when you seek asylum, you are not supposed to work. Okay. But I think they were trying to change it because they noticed that they are putting a lot of people to waste.
Exactly.
But as we speak now, I doubt if it has changed.
Okay. Because it's crazy. People who come here have certain skill sets, which I think the government or the society could leverage while they're sorting out their asylum papers or anything. So that was something.
But I think this luxury Germany can afford it. But I think personally, it's not worth it. You are putting people's future to waste.
Exactly. Yeah.
We, the activists, have to push more. So at least at any point in time, people should be made to work. Sometimes people stay in this so long, they get do no several times you don't do no, and then they don't have this perspective. You don't know your left and right. And then at the end of the day, even when these documentings are done, you notice that you've contributed less to the pension scheme. And then you earn, when you are on pension, you earn less, and then you are not earning enough. Definitely, you are actually planning that this person should feel in the future. It's definitely not going to earn enough when it stays here.
About the pension, this is a discussion I've had with my brother and other experts.
Yes.
So most of us will come over, except for those, let's say you're born here. Let's say you come over for studies, right? You're already in your 20s, give or take.
Early 20s.
Exactly. Yeah. So by the time you actually get into workforce or any kind of job, you're mid-20s, late 20s for most people on an average.
Yeah.
So when you do the math, let's say you work from that till retire, you still haven't put enough in your pension to live a comfortable enough life.
I think if you are fortunate to begin with around 25, 26, count yourself lucky. And then if you are you have a trade or you have a good profession, then at least what you pay into the pension scheme,
you can maximize that.
It takes a longer time. You might pay about 35, 40 or what, and then because you were earning enough, so you are still a bit fortunate. But those of us who maybe 30-something, 40, so definitely...
I try to think about it, like how would that, being in that position, it's like, how do you ensure you have a decent future?
You can't have...
You can, because it's stacked against you already, the way the system is set up, like when you come in late in the game.
It's not happening. So I think the lawmakers have to look at it. People have the opportunity to pay much earlier into even if they are not earning enough,
they can at least
put something there so that in the future they can also get something back.
True. Yeah, that was something that...
But that is two-side issue. Our end and then the lawmakers, the policy makers have to look at it, that why do you put people's future to waste? We shouldn't forget that the number of foreigners coming to Germany, the bio-Germans, that is the biological Germans, are going to be less. The foreigners are going to be more. That is, we don't need any scientific...
That's globalization.
So that is what it's going to be. That's how it's going to be. So I think the earlier the policymakers look at it, the better for the country as a whole.
And another thing we talked about that I also wanted to ask you was this whole idea of marrying for the purpose of having a visa. I don't know how often that happens, but what do you see as the roadblocks with that?
I think, you see, at any given point in time, people will have to find a way to survive. I will go back to the Germans after the First World War, Second World War. They also went elsewhere trying to survive through any whatever means. I think it's the similar scenario. So it's a way of, because the German system is designed a way that at any given point in time, what do you have to do? So if that's the only option you are left to, that except maybe you are with a German or you are someone who is documented, that's the only way out. It's not you who is prescribing it.
It's basically your circumstances,
system that has prescribed it that way. And so you have no other option.
Okay. Coming back to what you said before about us structuring ourselves and having institutions that welcome immigrants who come, and do you see a possibility of leveraging or partnering with the world? Like, for example, Hamburg has a Hamburg Welcome Center to create some sort of union between these to cater to the Africans who come in.
You've seen it, you've said it. There is these setups that are always done for foreigners, but most often you will be in a better position to advise a Cameroonian,
of course, than a white person.
Most often, you have to know people's history, their background, where they are coming from, what they've gone through. So based on that, when you are advising them, you know how to advise them. Just like you said earlier on, you have to know that at a point in time, if maybe you should come right now, maybe your parents borrowed money to pay for you. So when you come at that moment and you are insisting, go and study, hey, the person has borrowed money somewhere.
There's different priorities.
Parents are waiting for that money to be paid. So probably, yes, if he learns a trade, it's cool. It's the best for the future. But that moment, that might not hold. So you being one of them, having a better understanding of that situation, might say, my brother, okay, good, let's have plan A, plan B, or let's set a short term, then medium term, and then the future. So you might say, okay, let's look for some job, but don't forget, since you have these qualifications, don't put it to waste. Let's first, whilst you are doing this, try that maybe if you have extra time, be learning the language. So now at that point in time, you advise that use work as major and language as a minor. And then at a point in time, if these things are sorted out, then maybe you can change it. So it depends. So actually, we should be more involved in such institutions so that it's better. We are in a better position to advise our
Exactly.
people. But most often, too, we shouldn't forget it's not going to come easy. Because if they have thousands of such institutions, why would they want yours? Yeah. So we should also advocate for it. It's not going to come with ease, but we have to let the people know it is like that. For instance, Top Africa is being supported in a little way so that we can also continue advising our people. Okay. But it's still not enough. We have to do more. The day is just 24 hours. Yeah. So we will need more of such institutions, and our population is growing so that we will be in a better position to advise our people.
I think when I just moved from Cameroon to the UK, what I noticed was the absence of information. So obviously, as the years has gone by, it's getting better. But back in the days, people were not really willing to share their experiences with folks. And I feel like if we create a society where if I just touch down, let's say in Canada today, and I go online, I type African community in Canada, I should see an equivalent of Top Africa, and I can go into an office like this and be like, hey guys, I didn't have that when I moved. It was you and yourself and you figure it out.
And it's still, we haven't done enough. We haven't done enough. Because if I look at Top Africa, we are under capacity. Mostly it's just around me, which is not enough. Yeah. Most of the guys who have been supporting are full-time. They work full-time
as well.
So it is still not enough. We have to be in a better position to maybe employ more people.
Okay.
And then also one thing I've noticed is people need to have a passion. Yeah. These are not jobs you can. Because if it is just about job, you just have clothes and that ends it. But people should have passion in supporting one another. Because the good side of supporting others is that instead of being 2-3 people who are capable, in the end you have more people who are capable. So the society will develop more.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So I think that's a perfect way to segue into the second part of the interview. We'll look into the social construct. So everything that has to do with how we set up our community. We talked about the difference between integration versus assimilation, the impact of Western ideology on our traditional homes. So we'll touch on all that on the second part of the interview after this short break. All right, welcome back, guys. So we were talking before about just getting an understanding of the history of Ghanaians in Germany, the role that the different points of entry plays, the distinguishing between our first and second generation Ghanaians, and also those challenges with regards to gaining access to Germany. I wanted also to touch on the social construct, right? So one of the key places I loved in the early chapters of the book was having this communal living, right? So you explain, like, obviously when you come into a new country, you find your people. And in your example, it was more of having a chief and having people come together and live as a mini state, so to speak. Do you think this is something that's still happening, or is that something that we've moved away from as a community?
It has still not changed, yes, because most often when you are coming, you either look for a brother, a sister, some sort. But it's not always anyone who has a brother or a sister. So you come, and so most often when people come, they try to, either based on their tribe, they try to look for one of their tribesmen, and sometimes the churches they attend. Say, I attend this church when I was back home, or this mushi. So they try to identify, and most often too, it works.
Okay.
So that sort of communal thing has been very helpful. So at least the people have a starting point, somewhere they should begin from.
So you can argue that it plays a big role in your.
And it still plays a very big role in our setup.
All right. So playing devil's advocate.
It's sometimes you'll be here, and then someone will come and say, "Hey, guy, that's when you know what." They brought these 2 people to me, and they come from this group. And they bring the person here. And then I'm like, okay, then I'll look around. We have a lot of community, tribes, association. So they say, this person is a Ghan. So I call the president of the Ghan Union and say, Charlie, you know what? They brought 2 of your people here. Come and take them,
yeah.
Or this is a Bono person, or an Asante, or an Ehui. Then I can say, look, they have 1 or 2 of your people here. Try and see how best. So sometimes they'll stay here till maybe this leader comes or finds another way out. So it helps. So sometimes if it is not so, the whole problem will be on us. But because of this establishment. So sometimes Nigerian will come and then I'll call the president of the Nigerian Union and say, oh God, or I'll call any other Nigerian guy and say, hello, they have two of your people here and some will want to, there are a few occasions, so some also will run away from that responsibility. Then you try to get the next person. So the network has been very helpful.
Another thing I've been able to notice, at least from my own personal experience, is the role that the church plays in our community. I do know that, especially when it comes to work, finding work. And would you say that's the same with the Ghanaian society here, where they
absolutely, absolutely, it's still the same. When people come, sometimes they have no places to sleep, and the church offers them a place to sleep, and just like that, they'll call one church member, things like that. So it still plays a very important role.
So one could argue, from I won't say disadvantage, but as a setback, does this at some point slows down or deters people from fully integrating the society, since you're staying around your people, communally?
That is, you are absolutely correct. Even myself, I'll use myself as a case study. I'm always with my people, trying to help them here and there. So by so doing, you don't have the opportunity to be speaking German language.
All the time.
So it doesn't help. So most often it goes against us. Because there are people who are here 20 years, 30 years, because they can easily, comfortably be within their people and still...
And they don't feel the need then to...
So they are able to achieve their goals within their people. Sometimes it's a very big disadvantage. So you notice communities who are not that many here, most often on a one-on-one basis, they do better, they speak the German language, they integrate faster than most often people who have a lot of their people around. They have no option. They have to integrate. They have to mingle with the German bigger society. Other communities, they don't have a common language. So they are forced to be speaking German. But you find most of the Ghanaians, they can easily call one or two and their problems are solved. So there is no this urgency, the need to be speaking the language. So it also have a very big disadvantage.
But how do we address that? So if we were to make an impact in that, how would we get, let's say, the Ghanaians or the Nigerians, because they're quite
also.
How do we get them to the point where you still maintain your roots with your people, but you're integrating that society, giving you that extra advantage?
That is quite difficult to answer. If someone is able to come through his people, he has got a job, he's cleaning somewhere, 8 hours or 10 hours without speaking to anybody, but still has his job, he's earning his money. So it is difficult to tell that person that go and make friends with other people. So that is quite...
That's fair enough, because distinction, integration, assimilation. I feel like assimilation is... I don't believe in that as an expert. I mean, to some degree, right?
Yeah, the issue of this integration, assimilation can be looked at from just two different sides of the coin. It is either this way
or the other
way. The other one says, let's take the way we were colonized. Let's take the Francophone speaking people, the English speaking people. Those who came to lord over us, let me put it that way. Those who came, the English had this more of, hey, be yourself, but try to be like us. Friend came like, hey, you know what? You are one of us. So you are. So it looks like basically when we are in Germany, now not back home, but when we are here, it's like, if you come to Rome, do what the Romans do. Drink your beer, drink your wine, eat your kartoffel, eat your noodle, speak our language. But still that your uniqueness, what you are, your culture, everything about you remains the same. So you are here, you are learning the language, you are working, you are trying to respect time, you are trying not to disturb your neighbor when it's night and things like that. So one is saying, hey, look, try to learn our values, everything, but please be yourself. The other one tries to tell you that, hey, look, you know what? You are one of us. So take our values, our culture, everything, and then even forget about home. So most often you notice that such people will say they are even more German than the Germans themselves. To some extent, most of them, I wouldn't be that, but you are lost because you are not what you think you are. So though, yes, these words are quite similar.
Yeah, there's a very thin line.
There's a thin line. Yeah. So this is how I see. But I personally believe that, yes, learn the values of your environment, the system, try to learn the language, have German friends, understand what is happening within your immediate environment, try to be law-abiding, try to behave like the Germans. But don't forget you're a Cameroonian, where you are coming from. Even your color alone tells you are a Cameroonian. So don't deceive yourself. Not to be what you think you are.
I couldn't agree more. I definitely agree with you.
And it is even an advantage to have two different cultures.
Of course.
It's an advantage for me to be able to say I'm going home.
Exactly.
And it is also an advantage for me and say this is my home. It's an advantage to say I can speak German, I can be with Germans and feel at home. But I can tell you, I feel at home at the other side of, and even perhaps more. So I have something unique no one can take from me. But when I begin to think because I'm a German, and then I begin even to push my own people, then I think you are deceiving yourself.
Do you believe
that is my personal opinion?
And I share that. I share the same. Do you believe that the state could do more in helping African expats integrate outside of what we are doing with Top Africa and other Africans? Do you think the German government could do more, room for improvement with people from the continent when they come over?
I think yes. Okay. One is just like we said before, that when people come, it shouldn't take them 10 years, 20 years before they even get into the pension scheme. Their time is wasted. So either you are accepting me or you are not accepting me. Then either I have to move on, then I move on. But to keep me marking time is not helpful. And then one also thing too is that they should also give us the space to participate, to be part of the system. So that even when policies have been formulated, our inputs, our thoughts can flow into it. Also that when such things come out, because we are considered, our history, where we are coming from, what affects us on a daily basis, are also brought into it. Recently, I've been having some challenges. That is, a lot of our people comes to me for advice, and I notice I don't have what it takes to advise them. And I call experts to advise me from our community, and you notice they also don't have knowledge. And then they might tell you, I'm talking of people you notice they're having psychiatric problem, and then most often when they are taken to these doctors, these psychiatrists, they themselves too, because mostly they don't know the problem we are facing. They cannot even understand that maybe you're having problem with your husband. That is all this problem.
Because it's foreign to them.
They don't even know that maybe your documents, that 5 years, 10 years, you are still not having your documents. Psychologically, you don't even have your peace. And sometimes if it is marriage or this, then just divorce and move on. See, so sometimes it's very difficult. So when we are part of this decision making, or when some of our people are also given advantage to work at such places, they can put their background, they can put their know-how and their history, because they will have a better understanding for those people.
Yeah, this gives more context as well.
Exactly. So those are some of the things that the system can do a little bit more. Of course, then we should not all just also look at their side. We should look at our side too. We should also, as a society, do more. I was telling you that we should try to have a sort of network, other institutions, so that we can also advise our people at early stages, so that when they come, we can advise them. Some of them, few of them, might quickly take advantage and then integrate faster and take advantage of the system. Some will willingly want to, but by the time such information gets to them, it's too late.
So given that we're in a situation where we've integrated and then we want to start creating a family.
Yes.
What's the challenge? Being able to raise a family that holds our traditional values but withstands the social norms in this side of the world, which is more progressive than we would like.
I think that is one of the biggest challenges we have as a people. We come from a different traditional background. Yeah, where we are coming from, we have traditionally the man as the head of the family, and then the woman comes second command, then comes the children.
Yeah.
But we come into a system, into the German setup, that is not like ours back home. Here, the woman is working 24 hours, the man is working 24 hours.
Yeah.
So the man earns money, the woman earns money. And if you look around you, it's a sort of equal system. Even most often, you notice that the German setup, if you work critically, the woman is even more of the boss than the husband.
Yeah.
And then you come from Africa, and the woman also sees it the way it works here. And then you, as the man, this is not how the sort of marriages we have back home. This is not the structure.
Yeah.
I'm the man. So even sometimes, even what I'm saying is not the way it's supposed to be. A wife will accept it first and then maybe go back and call the husband and say, husband, this is not it. But here the wife will tell even before everybody that, hey, look, stop being stupid. So because of that, our marriages doesn't hold properly. That is a fact. So the divorce rate among us is very high. And then there's this unfortunate aspect of where mostly a man will go and stay with the woman. Yeah. So if you, the man, who is supposed to be the breadwinner, the head of the family, you are staying with me. And at the end of the month, I go and pay the bills. Yeah. So automatically, you cannot even command me or tell me what to do. Yeah. So that traditional setup, when we bring it here, it collapses. So it's not helping. The kids sees their parents always fighting over certain things that are not relevant. Even back home, you hardly see them even fighting over something. But here it's a norm.
Very visible.
The kids themselves too, indirectly, are not brought up in a home, so there is no peace inside the house. Yeah. So most often, the way we bring our kids up and our marriages, unfortunately, doesn't survive this system. Yeah. Except few cases where couples try to adjust.
Because I'm a strong believer that what makes society move forward is the nuclear family.
Yes.
If you raise kids in a home, a two-parent home where there is a traditional set of values, the kids could live and go into society with those values and then become functioning members of society. Yeah. And one could argue that the African values of marriage are, like you said, are being dismantled by this Western society. And then it begs the question of how do we as a people find a way to preserve that? Because I don't think there's an easy answer to that, but it's something that...
Yeah, because this is the way I've come to see it. The Western influence is huge. Yeah, we've not been able to keep our values. We've already allowed the Western values to dominate over our uniqueness. And any group of people who are not able to maintain what is theirs and allow other traditions or values to dominate yours, automatically yours is dismantled.
Exactly.
So even if we are talking here that this is the trend, it is actually also gradually taking place in our home.
Oh yes,
where we are coming from.
Yeah.
So it is not years back, you see, mostly the men are those working, going and coming. Today, if you go back to Africa, the story is different. So basically,
just to push back on that, I don't see this with, for example, Indians and Chinese people.
Yeah, because they have maintained their uniqueness.
Yeah.
Yes, they are there, and that is why they are even prospering.
Exactly.
That is because for you to prosper, you first have to maintain your uniqueness and then you build upon it.
Exactly.
But if the foundation is falling, we, unfortunately, our traditions, our norms, everything about us, the uniqueness we have as Africans
disappearing.
Is deteriorating very fast. So any society who has lost its uniqueness You see, this woman always comes here dressed in her African tie.
It's a lovely attire.
She's in another system, but trying to maintain what she is. But it is absolutely gone.
Yeah.
And then, so your values, anything that makes you what you are is gone.
Yes.
So it is either this way, either we recapture how it used to be, or we accept it that it's gone. And then even if the new value we want to learn, then let's learn it so that we all know what we are doing. But now we are
in the middle,
in the middle, and we are lost. And there is nothing like being in the middle. It's either you are what you are,
or the other way.
Or the other way. And the Chinese and the Indians, the example you use is the perfect one. That is what is making them succeed. You said something earlier. You said when you came to study in the UK, when there was an opportunity for your friend to tell you where there's a job, he or she was keeping it from you. That is the same thing when we come here. We try not to work. Chinese goes to any of the African countries and notice there is gold, diamond somewhere. He tells his people, come. Yes, there's something here. Let us all grab. These small little things we are talking about, it plays a major role.
So here's my take on this. A woman controls who she lays with. A man controls who he marries.
Okay.
Be the best woman you can be. Let me be the best man I can be. And then let's meet at the intersection and then build from there.
To be honest with you, if you ask me if I have a solution, what should be done, I'll be honest with you and say I don't know.
It's a big one. That's
To be honest, I don't really know. We can only speculate, But it all goes back to our values. If you lose your values, you've lost it.
I agree.
Yeah. And that also comes back to why it's necessary to rewrite our history for us to know that at a point in time, even our parents were marrying 3, 4, 5 women and still they survive it. But even we marry just one. And we can't survive it. So actually there's
something wrong. Yeah.
What is wrong is I can't tell.
Yeah.
But all I know is that because our values are gone.
I agree with you.
Our traditions are gone. So maybe we have to go back and say, relearn and unlearn the things we learned.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just speculating. Because it is not helping.
Yeah. The reason I brought that up was because when you give birth to children here who are born here, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a challenge of trying to keep them connected to their Africanness.
It's so difficult.
They're from here, so to them they're German. So when and part of the whole diaspora is to make sure that at the end of the day you still know that you're Ghanaian.
I will tell you something. I call my kids with their names, the African names I give to them.
Correct.
When they were young, they used to fight me. Yeah, you never mention these German names or English names. You always call me by my traditional name, Kafui Jifa. And along the line, when they started growing up, they started even liking it. And there is a name, they also have another name. In the Ghanaian setup, from my side, if you are born a particular day, there is a name you get automatic.
Oh, okay.
That one was not added. And now they were asking, Papa, why didn't you add that one? And I was like, oh. Then when I call your name, you are mad.
You're mad, yeah.
Papa always call me with my traditional name. And I also stick to it. That's why I gave you the name. I was also I want to stay with it. They never liked it till they grew up. And today they like it. So I think maybe we have to stick to it. There's something we are doing wrong. And to be honest with you, I don't know it. All have to find out.
Yeah, I think it's a collective effort for this one. Yeah. One of the things that...
because myself things are not I wouldn't say mine is the best. So to sit here and be telling you that, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be, I'll be telling lies.
Okay. Another thing you talked about in the book, which was quite, I think I also wrestle with a lot, is this idea of most of us who come here say, oh, we're going to go home at some point. And then we get stuck in this loop where we're not investing here in making sure we have a comfortable life.
Yes.
And we are not also sending money home because we are not yet at that position where we are comfortable enough to send money home. Did you have to go through something like that where you're,
Yeah, you see, this is again, this uncertainty. not knowing whether we are here or we are there. At any point in time, we believe we are just making transit in Germany. But this thought has also not been that helpful. So at the point in time, you realize that one of our foot is here, the other one is there. So we don't get to settle properly. You have 50,000. Maybe if you don't acquire it overnight, you save it. It could buy you a house here. Until you can pay for the house and then pay the rest. So 20 years time, 30 years time becomes yours. No, we go and maybe invest something back home, and we are not there to take care of it. So at the end of the day, that one to 80%, it goes to waste. So yes, that uncertainty. And we don't also want to invest here because we don't believe this is our future. This is where we are going to live. So it's a question that bothers. And over the years, this thinking is never changing. If the young ones who can't believe after buying some 1 or 2 cars, they will go back home and stay. But they are also never going. They are still part of the system here. So I believe either you go now at early stages, get used to the system there, how they do their things, because you have to unlearn most of the things here, and then learn the things there, and then be part of them, flow with them, and then you can be, Or you are here, you say, this is where I live, this is where I have my family, this is where I do my setup. Yes, of course, occasionally I'll go home, but I'm going on holidays.
Exactly.
And then come
back.
So you have to choose properly. And sometimes we wait till we are very old, and then I will say we are going. But then we have medical challenges. We have to go to the hospital occasionally, and then to the medical system there is not as good here. So it become a confused people. So I say you have to decide clearly what you want. Either you want to stay here, that becomes your second home. Then whatever you want to do here, you establish here.
So basically make a choice and as early as possible.
As early as possible.
Okay.
But this not knowing your left and right. Am I here? Am I there? Am I here? Am I there? By the time you notice, you are neither there nor here. And it's very, very unfortunate. And to be honest with you, about 90% of us falls within this category. Not knowing what exactly we want. And then, that is unfortunate. That's how it is. It's like that. Because still, at 60, at 70, we are still staying. We are going back. We are
still not going.
We are still not going. And we are dying here. We are burying us every day.
We talked about sending money home. That's one of the major things we do, sending home money. But then one of the things we don't talk about much is the psychological pressure that puts on you as well. When you're here and you know that is the expectation from people back home who don't understand what you're going through, to send money home. And then let's say in the case where you don't send money home, they're not happy. And the people who you do send money home end up being well off and you are still struggling. And where do you draw the line as to how much help you provide?
You see, that's a very interesting statement. It puts so much pressure on us. And even when you send something home, it's not even appreciated. It is assumed you have 1 million. So if you send me $100, you've done nothing. So even the efforts you put in are not appreciated. That is why. But collectively, to the money we send home is huge. So I believe it's time the diaspora comes out with another strategy. We can't continue to send billions, millions home every year. That only solves social and welfare issues. Perhaps we could put this money in another form that could transform our continent. So we also have to look at this money we've been sending. It's cool to continue sending money, but maybe it's time we form some larger associations, we form a broader associations so that this money could be channeled home in another format. And maybe also it could be the baggaging, the how do we call it? The bargaining we can use that as a bargaining point to influence even politics back home. Because if we are sending this amount of money and you still want to mismanage it, you still want to use it for irrelevant things, not for to just waste it and say, look, it doesn't go that way. So maybe these millions we send home, it's time we sit down as a people, as a broader diaspora community, and channel it in another format. Maybe, yes, of course, you can continue sending your 100 all home, but if a group of maybe 1,000 people come and they put 1,000 together, then they can say, look, we want to put up this company here, company A or company B. And then also we will be in a better position to influence decisions taken back home. Most often, the leadership back home is not doing the needful thing, and we are still, I can tell most of the African companies, not only the companies, but governance, the leaders will go to IMF today for bailout. In the next 2-3 years, the same thing. So we are not learning from the past mistakes. We keep committing the same errors. So it's time the diaspora, the Malaysians have done it, the Indonesians have done it, the Chinese have done it. It is the diaspora that have changed the fortune of this country. So it's time the African diaspora to begin to look in another perspective.
That's a fair point. I think there's so much potential in that, being able to pull our resources together. Because like you said, from the interviews you had with other members of higher power, there are a lot of diaspora people who has enough resources we can leverage. All right. I think we'll be drawing closer to the end of the interview. 2 things. Number one, what would you say would be, if you were to give an advice to any young Ghanaian or any African who is still trying to figure themselves out in this society or anywhere in the world where they've moved, what would you say are the key things they should keep in mind when just starting, right?
They should network and network.
Okay.
They should share. Most often we believe in these solo efforts.
It
takes you nowhere. Try to build bigger communities and share. Network with one another. That is the first. If you are in communities where you don't have command over the language, then take advantage and learn the language. That's one of the major things you should do. As I said, network. And also they should begin to look at political participation. They should participate in the politics of the land. They shouldn't always stay aloof for people to decide for them. They should be part of the decision-making bodies. So they should look, and then they should also not necessarily believe that they must always be in academia. They can do a lot of these vocational debates. And then you'll be surprised that most of the people who own homes in Germany are people who are running their own companies. He owns his own Verstadt. He owns his own small company somewhere. He's a carpenter somewhere. He is a plumber somewhere. He's an electrician somewhere. Most of these people who own site, there's people who owns this small company.
That's something most people don't know.
An area they should look at. And then, like I said, network and share. Because the more you share with others, the more also others shares with you. So you don't become an island.
No, I think those are powerful advice there. Where can people get the book? So is it available on all the usual Amazon stores? And
unfortunately, it's still not on Amazon yet. The second edition will be going there. But this is a self-publishing. So I did everything on my own.
Wow, congratulations.
So that is quite challenging. So we are looking at the second edition will be on Amazon. But for now, it is on my private website. In English, www.beddy.de. Beddy is BEDDY. Then .de.
So guys, I'll put the link of the website on the description of this episode when we air it. Desmond, thank you so much for taking out the time. I know it's been close to an hour we've been exchanging. Thanks again, and you take care.
Thank you so much. Hopefully I was able to answer your questions satisfactorily.
You most certainly did. You take care.
Thank you, sir.
The story of every immigrant is filled with challenges, sacrifice, and a whole lot of grit. but it's the people that we meet along the way and the community that we create around ourselves that gives us the strength to push through and create the life that we so desire. I hope you guys enjoyed the exchange with Desmond. Be sure to hit us on social media to let us know what you liked and where we can do better. Don't forget to check out his book, The History of Ghanaians in Germany. And as always, hit the subscribe button and follow us on social media. Until next time, I've been your host, D-Terence. You stay blessed.